Hello, I'm Mr. Woodcock. I'm an English teacher, and from September I'll be an RSL. I'm going to read chapter 9, and that's entitled Night Visitors. Herod Sale was playing snooker when Alex was shown back into the room with the jellyfish. It was hard to say quite where the heavy wooden snooker table had come from, but Alex just couldn't avoid the feeling that the little man looked slightly ridiculous, almost lost at the far end of the green baize. Mr. Grin was with him, carrying a footstool, which Sale stood on for each shot. "Ah, good evening, Felix. Of course, I mean Alex," Sale exclaimed. "Do you play snooker?" "Occasionally." "How would you like to play against me?" And he gestured at the table. There were only 2 red balls left, then the colours. I'm sure you know the rules. The black ball is worth 7 points, the pink 6, and so on, but I'm willing to bet that you don't manage a score at all. "How much?" "Ha ha," Sale laughed. "Suppose I were to bet you £10 a ball." "As much as that?" Alex looked surprised. "To a man like myself, £10 is nothing." "Nothing? Why, I could happily bet you £100 a point." "Then why don't you?" The words were softly spoken, but they were still a direct challenge. £100. Sale gazed thoughtfully at Alex. "But how will you pay me back if you lose?" Alex said nothing and Sale laughed. "You can work for me after you leave school," he said. £100 a point if you get them in. 100 hours working for me if you don't. What do you say?" Alex nodded, suddenly feeling sick. Adding up the balls, he could see that there were 24 points left on the table. 2,400 hours working for Herod Sale. That would take years. Very well. Sale was still smiling. "I like a gamble. My father was a gambling man." "I thought he was an oral hygienist. Who told you that?" Silently, Alex cursed himself. Why wasn't he more careful when he was with this man? "I read it in a paper," he said. My dad got me some stuff to read about you when I won the competition." "Very well, let's get on with it." Sale decided to take the first shot without asking Alex. He hit the cue ball, sending one of the reds straight into the middle pocket. "That's 100 hours you owe me. I think I'll get you starting cleaning the toilets." The jellyfish floated back, as if watching the game from its tank. Mr. Grin picked up the footstool and moved it around the table. Sale laughed briefly and followed the butler around, already sizing up the next shot, a fairly tricky black into the corner. 7 points if he got in. 700 hours more work. "So what does your father do?" Sale asked. Alex quickly remembered what he had read about Felix Lester's family. He's an architect," he said. "Oh yes, what's he designed?" The question was casual, but Alex wondered if he was being tested. He was working on an office in Soho," Alex said. "And before that, he did an art gallery in Aberdeen." "Ah, yes." Sale climbed onto the footstool and aimed. The black ball missed the corner pocket by a fraction of an inch, spinning back into the centre. Sale frowned. "That was your bloody fault," he snapped at Mr. Grin. "Warg?" "Your shadow was on the table." Never mind, he turned to Alex. "You've been unlucky. None of the balls will go in. You won't make any money this time." Alex pulled a cue out of the rack, and glanced at the table. Sale was right. The last red ball was too close to the cushion, but in snooker there are other ways to win points, as Alex knew only too well. There was a snooker table in the basement of the Chelsea house, and he'd often spent evenings playing against his uncle. This was something that he hadn't mentioned to Sale. He aimed careful at the red, then hit. Perfect. Nowhere near. Sale was back at the table before the balls had even stopped rolling, but he had spoken too soon. He stared as the white ball hit the cushion and rolled behind the pink. He was trapped, snookered. It was impossible to hit the cue ball now without touching the pink. For about 20 seconds he measured up the angles, breathing through his nose. "You've had a bit of bloody luck," he said. "You seem to have accidentally snookered me. Now, let me see." He concentrated, then hit the white, trying to curve it around. But once again he was out by less than half an inch. There was an audible click as he touched the pink. "Four shot," Alex said. "You've touched the pink. According to the rules, that's 6 points to me." "What?" "The foul is worth 6 points. I was down 1 point, so now I'm up 5 points. That's £500 you owe me." Yes, yes, yes. Saliva flecked Sale's lips. He was staring at the table as if he couldn't believe what had happened. His shot had exposed the red ball. It was an easy shot into the top corner, and Alex took it without hesitating. "And another 100 makes 600, he said. He moved down the table, brushing past Mr. Grin. Quickly, Alex judged the angles. Yes! He got a perfect kiss on the black, sending it into the corner, with the white spinning back for a good angle on the yellow. £1,300 plus another 200 when he dropped the yellow immediately afterwards. Sale could only watch in disbelief as Alex pocketed the green, the brown, the blue and the pink in that order, and then, down the full length of the table, the black. "I make that £4,000 exactly," Alex said. He put down the cue. "Thank you very much." Sale's face had gone the colour of the last ball. 4,000? "I wouldn't have gambled if I'd have known you were this bloody good," he said. He went over to the wall and pressed a button. Part of the floor slid back, and the entire billiard table disappeared into it, carried down by her hydraulic lift. When the floor slid back, there was no sign that it had ever been there. It was a neat trick, the toy of a man with money to burn. But Sale was no longer in the mood for games. He threw his billiard cue over to Mr. Grin, hurling it almost like a javelin. The butler's hand flicked out and caught it. "Let's eat," Sale said. The two of them sat at opposite ends of a long glass table in the room next door, while Mr. Grin served smoked salmon, then some sort of stew. Alex drank water. Sale, who had cheered up once again, had a glass of expensive red wine. "You spent some time with the Stormbreaker today?" he asked. "Yes." "And?" "Ah, it's great," Alex said. "And?" Meant it. And he found it hard to believe that this ridiculous man could have created anything so sleek and powerful. "So, what programs did you use?" "History, science, math. It's hard to believe, but I actually quite enjoyed them." "Do you have any criticisms?" Alex thought for a moment. "I was surprised it didn't have 3D acceleration. It's not intended for games. Did you consider a headset and an integrated microphone?" "Of course," Sale said, and nodded. "They'll be available as accessories." "I'm sorry you've only come here for such a short time. Alex, tomorrow we'll have to get you onto the internet. The Stormbreakers are all connected to a master network. That's controlled from here. It means they have 24 hours free access." "That's cool." "It's more than cool." Sale's eyes were far away, the grey pupils small, dancing. "Tomorrow we start shipping the computers out," he said. "They'll go by plane, by truck, and by boat. It will take just one day for them to reach every point of the country. The day after, at 12 o'clock noon exactly, the Prime Minister honours me by pressing the start button that will bring every one of my Stormbreakers online. At that moment, all the schools will be united. Think of it, Alex. Thousands of school children, hundreds of thousands sitting in front of screens. Suddenly together. North, south, east and west. One school, one family. And then they will know me for what I am." He picked up his glass and emptied it. "How was the goat?" he asked. "I'm sorry?" "The stew. The meat is goat. It is a recipe of my mother's." "She must have been an unusual woman." Herod Sale held out his glass, and Mr. Grin refilled it. He was gazing at Alex curiously. "You know," he said, "I have a strange feeling that you and I have met before." "I don't think so." "But yes, your face is familiar to me. Mr. Grin, what do you think?" The butler stood back with the wine, his dead white wad twisted around to look at Alex. "Eeg, rah," he said. "Yes, of course, you're right." "Eeg, rah?" Alex asked. "Ian Ryder, the security man I mentioned. You look quite a lot like him. Quite a coincidence, don't you think?" "I don't know. I never met him." Alex could feel the danger getting closer. "You told me he left suddenly." "Yes, he was sent here to keep an eye on things. But if you ask me, he was never any bloody good. Spent half his time in the village. In the port, the post office, the library, when he wasn't snooping around here. Of course, that's something else you have in common. I understand Fraulein Vole found you today." Sale's pupils crawled to the front of his eyes, trying to get closer to Alex. "You were off limits." "I got a bit lost," Alex shrugged, trying to make light of it. "Well, I hope you don't go wandering again tonight. Security is very tight at the moment, and as you may have noticed, my men are all armed." "I didn't think that was legal in England." "We have a special license. At any rate, Alex, I would advise you to go straight to your room after dinner and stay there. I would be inconsolable if you were accidentally shot and killed in the darkness, although of course it would save me £4,000. Actually, I think you've forgotten the cheque. You'll have it tomorrow. Maybe we can have lunch together. Mr. Grin will be serving up one of my grandmother's recipes." "More goat?" "Dog. You've obviously had a family that loves animals." "Only the edible ones," Sale smiled. "And now I must wish you good night." Okay. So thank you for reading that, listening to me, and obviously don't forget at the end of the chapter to complete the activities. Thank you, and good night.